Dreaming of owning a property in a prime location with great proximity and fantastic neighborhood? EJ Investments Sanyang Seaview Estate is the best choice you have been waiting for. Our Sanyang Seaview Estate is approximately 15 minutes drive away from the busy hub of Brusubi roundabout and into the heart of nature, where you can have a peaceful and relaxed lifestyle with your family. You can buy a finished 4-bedroom story with 5-year flexible payment plan or a service plot with 2-year payment plan option. With over 300 homes, you will enjoy big tar roads with covered drainage, modern electrification with solar street lights, gated entrance with security post, and a breath-catching experience of our beautiful sea view and lake view. You can own a home today at our Sanyang Seaview Estate. Call us today on 446-4838 or 325-9220. Visit our website on ejinvestments.net. EJ Investments, first in property.
Hello and welcome to this special report. It's the launching of the 16-day activism campaign on gender-based violence here at Westfield, the Youth Monument, and the theme is Orange the Gambia. Hear me out.
The Network Against Gender-Based Violence, NGBV, was established in the Gambia April 2009 to contribute towards the eradication of gender-based violence and empowerment of women and girls to actively participate in their own socio-economic, political development and advancement. Given the synopsis at the activities that will be taking place during the course of the gender-based violence campaign, which started on 25th November to 10th of December, Hadimboj Barrow, National Coordinator of National Gender-Based Violence, runs us through the program.
This year marks the 26th year of the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence campaign. And this was initiated in 1991 by the Center for Women's Global Leadership. The 16 Days International Campaign runs from 25th of November, which is recognized as the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women, to the 10th December as the Human Rights Day. And the reason is to symbolize the link between violence against women and human rights as a global issue. Because you cannot separate women's rights issue from human rights. As we often say, women's rights are human rights. So that is why when we are recognizing the 16 days, we run it through to the last day, which is the Human Rights Day, which is the last day of the campaign on the 10th of December. We are all aware that in recent years, the voice of survivors and activists through campaigns such as the Me Too, hashtag Me Too. We all had that from the media, from the international media, and sometimes we hear hashtag Time Up, or you hear hashtag Not One More. Women cannot be silenced anymore. Network Against Gender-Based Violence, we join those women who cannot be silenced anymore on behalf of the survivors through the One-Stop Center, which is a multi-sectoral team looking at the issues of survivors against gender-based violence. From 2012 to date, Network Against Gender-Based Violence, with its partners, every year we ensure that we celebrate the 16 days. We do it in different styles. Sometimes we do march past, nationwide caravan, ensuring that we amplify the voice of the voiceless, which are normally the vulnerable group, women and survivors. Today, this year, the theme is We Orange the Gambia at national level. And no doubt, all of you are putting this orange t-shirt to make sure that we orange the Gambia and ensure that we work together to make sure that this menace is king in this country. Under the One-Stop Center, which we use to amplify the voice of survivors, from 2013 to date, the One-Stop Center have registered 1,576 reported cases of gender-based violence. And let me inform you that this is not a nationwide data. This is just a data collected mostly from Greater Banjul area and Bansang Hospital.
Omisisa Hokinte talked about sexual violence and the struggle many young girls deal with and the injustice.
When we talk about gender-based violence, whether it is child, early and forced marriage, or female genital mutilation, we are hopeful that we are the generation who is going to end these harmful traditional practices. But today, I will take us off the agenda of female genital mutilation and child marriage and encourage everybody here to at least create a minute or two or at least 5 to talk about sexual violence. Whether it will be in your community, whether it will be on your social media platform, whether it will be with your family, a classmate, or whosoever. Let us just create the time and talk about sexual violence. I will come to the point that I will discuss why I am doing this national pleading for people to start breaking the taboo or breaking the silence on sexual violence, so that we will be comfortably addressing this issue as we are comfortably talking about child marriage or talking about female genital mutilation. In the performance earlier, I saw a lot of things. A reproductive status of a woman was used to bully her. Another girl was violated by an adult in her house, child abuse, and a brother-in-law was also violent to a woman. These are the daily struggles that many women and girls endure in their lifetimes. The millions of women and girls who are living with the scars of gender-based violence never chose to experience these horrible feelings or practices that they were forced to endure. The millions of people who have been forced into unions or marriages or relationships that were not their choices, it's not their fault. The millions of women who have also experienced one form of sexual violence or the other, it is never their fault, and we can't continue blaming their dress code or their choice of locations at a given time. We as a society must agree to the fact that gender-based violence, whether it is perpetrated against an individual in a private relationship or in a public place, it's just unacceptable, it's unjustifiable, and it's inexcusable. Gender-based violence continues to cause horrible health effects, social and economic consequences on its survivors and victims, as well as entire families, communities, and societies. This is the 21st century, and we cannot continue to agree to injustice, whether it is perpetrated against a girl or a boy, a man or a woman, a young person or an elderly person. Let's look at sexual violence, for instance. The silence can't continue. We can't prioritize female genital mutilation and child marriage over sexual violence, or we can't continue talking about honor killings or acid attacks, and we don't want to talk about sexual violence. All these are issues affecting women and girls. All these are issues affecting our personal integrity and dignity. Therefore, we can't have a choice, because a particular donor wants us to talk about one thing and forget about another thing. We as a society must learn how to change the narrative and determine how we utilize our scarce resources to holistically and comprehensively address all issues that girls and women, boys and men also face in our society. We must work hard, probably harder, smarter, and more strategically to make sure that all GBV issues are challenged and eliminated in our society. Violence, injustice, exploitation, and abuse actually shouldn't have any space in our society, whether in our homes or in the schools or in the workplaces. The global epidemic of sexual violence cannot continue. We as activists, we as student leaders, we as parents, we as politicians, we as ministers and presidents must learn to speak up and to speak in a way that women and girls will be protected from all forms of exploitation. Sexual violence should have no presence in our homes, in our communities, in our schools, and in our workplaces. The taboo on sex and sexuality must be broken once and for all. Whether you are a president, a director, a permanent secretary, a minister, a media personnel, a teacher, a religious leader, a student, a security officer, or a cleaner, your status just doesn't matter. Your status cannot make you a perpetrator. Your status should not be used to abuse other people, vulnerable and voiceless people that we are all supposed to protect in one way or the other. We must talk and we must also take action. A child violated in a school or in the street. A young boy molested by a tourist or a sugar mommy. A young woman trafficked to another location for sexual violence. A job seeker who is threatened not to be given a particular job if she doesn't exist sexual intercourse in exchange with a job opportunity. A staff who is due for promotion, but the boss is asking or demanding for sexual contacts or relationships before she is promoted. Or a girl who is just walking in the street, or a girl who is going to the university or college, who is being told constantly or reminded constantly by her teacher to exchange sex for grades. All these are issues affecting us, either directly or indirectly, in our workplaces, in our homes, in our streets, in other locations, even in our places of worship. We can't continue to be silent. We must break the silence on sexual violence. Let us all learn to speak up. Let us all learn to stand up for the truth, no matter how difficult it is. It is through our concerted efforts and our partnership that we will be able to end all forms of gender-based violence, including sexual violence against women and girls.
Executive Director Action Aid Omar Baji highlights the importance of the day.
The purpose of these celebrations is mainly to sensitize the public about human rights issues around the world and to highlight the efforts we are making to improve the promotion, protection, and fulfillment of human rights. Now, thousands of organizations around the world join this campaign in the Gambia. In the Gambia, the campaign is facilitated and coordinated by the Network Against Gender-Based Violence, a community-based organization that brings together stakeholders to conduct gender-based violence in a multi-sectoral approach. Bringing organizations together to work on a common issue, to move towards the same direction, is a mammoth task, and we must applaud the Network of Gender-Based Violence for taking up that challenge and doing it effectively and ensuring that we are all working together in an alliance to be able to fight against gender-based violence. We thank you very much, the network, for taking the bull by the horn and bringing different organizations together and doing this job in such an effective way. Ladies and gentlemen, Action Aid's vision is a world without poverty and injustice, in which every person enjoys their right to a life of dignity. And the vision is to work with the poor and exploited people to eradicate poverty and injustice. Our values include, among others, mutual respect, equity, and justice for all, no matter who you are. So it doesn't matter whether you are a girl child or a woman, you must be respected. And your rights must be recognized and respected as well. Action Aid is therefore proud to be associated with the Network Against Gender-Based Violence, mainly because of what it stands for. That is the noble cause of fighting against the elimination of all forms of violence against women and girls. It was established in 2010, and the network has made significant achievements. And some of the things they have done is, one, the commissioning of a desk review of gender-based violence in the Gambia in 2010. Actually, if you want to fight, you need to know your enemy. And they did carry out this survey to be able to know what are the violations, what are the causes, and what is it that is really perpetuating this violation over time. The development of clinical guideline and psychosocial support manual and the training of health and social workers on this manual. Several trainings and sensitizations were also done at various levels for different professionals and members of society, such as lawyers, social workers, police officers, and health workers on prevention and addressing of gender-based violence. In addition, several community and religious leaders at national and regional levels were trained and sensitized on the Women's Act, Sexual Offenses and the Domestic Violence Act, and other gender-based violence issues.
Country Director Child Fund Farmer Dabo said women cannot be silenced.
Women cannot be silent anymore. For me or for us at Child Fund, we believe that that is something that we cannot even think about doing. Women cannot be silent. They cannot be silent. Let's look back. When we go to our homes, it's the women that are taking care of our kids. How can they be silent when they don't understand how they should look after the children? How can they be silent when they don't know how to prepare our homes? How can we keep them silent when we are not doing things that we think should be done the way they're supposed to be done? Women cannot be kept silent. And at Child Fund, in our global strategy, we believe that every individual must be given the opportunity to successfully transition through the different life stages. So when you are a child, we want to see that you become a young adult, you become a responsible citizen who is involved and participate in all angles of development. But how can you do that when you are already silent? And when we talk about every human being, we're talking about both men and women. So definitely, we cannot allow our women to be silent.
Permanent Secretary Office of the Vice President and Minister of Women Affairs Safi Sankare Faraj delivered the launching statement on behalf of the Vice President.
On behalf of His Excellency, the Vice President, I convey very warm greetings, and by extension, from the government of the Gambia. Chairperson, every year, the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence is observed internationally as a campaign period to bring to light different forms of violence and discrimination against women and girls worldwide. This year's campaign, which is earmarked by the UN and as an International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, commenced on the 25th of November and ends on the 10th of December. The 10th of December is also recognized as the UN Human Rights Day. During this period, we will be taking cognizance of all other important days, such as the World AIDS Day on the 1st of December and International Day for Persons with Disability on the 3rd of December. This is by no means a coincidence, given that gender-based violence mostly affects women and girls, especially those living with HIV and AIDS or disabilities. Chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, every year an international theme is formulated to symbolize the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and the theme for this year's campaign is Orange the World. #HearMeToo. In the Gambia, we have adopted Orange the Gambia, #HearMeToo. The objectives of the campaign this year are to amplify the voices of women groups, to prevent and end violence against women and girls, to advocate for specific changes within institutions and workplace to promote gender equality and end violence against women, to call for specific financial commitments in national efforts to prevent and eliminate violence against women and girls. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is without doubt that gender-based violence has significant consequences, especially for girls and women's physical, sexual, and mental health. It has the potential to destabilize the family unit, thereby affecting the social fabric of communities and the well-being of society as a whole. It therefore goes without saying that the importance of attaining the objectives of this year's campaign cannot be overemphasized. This is because gender-based violence stifles economic growth of any nation by limiting women's ability to contribute to socio-economic development, as well as imposing on government heavy financial burden to provide care and protection services to victims and survivors. As a government, we recognize the role and importance of women in socio-economic development and nation building, and therefore we must provide the conducive environment to protect and promote the rights of women and girls throughout the Gambia, so that they can reach their full potential and contribute meaningfully to their families, communities, and nation as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, our efforts to protect and promote human rights of women and girls continue to be fraught by the prevalence of violence against women and girls, particularly those affected by harmful practices such as female genital mutilation, early and forced child marriage. Harmful stereotypes and discrimination faced by women and girls in various sections of society continue to be a hindrance to the realization of their human rights. It is therefore important to note that the government of the Gambia has registered success in the enactment of legislation to protect women and girls from violence and discrimination. These include the Women's Act, which was amended in 2015 to include provisions prohibiting FGM. The Children's Act of 2005, which was amended in 2016 to include provisions prohibiting child marriage. The Sexual Offences Act of 2013 and the Domestic Violence Act of 2013, which prohibits all forms of sexual violence and domestic violence respectively. These laws and the establishment of the Women's Bureau and the National Women's Council under the auspices of the Office of the Vice President and Ministry of Women's Affairs are the national machineries responsible for gender issues and protection of women's rights in the Gambia. This, I have just alluded to, is a clear manifestation of the government's commitment to the eradication of gender-based violence. As a government, we remain committed to our obligations to international instruments on the protection of women and girls, such as CEDAW, the Maputo Protocol on the rights of women in Africa, Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, and Agenda 2063 for the Africa we want. We cannot, ladies and gentlemen, remain complacent. There still remain a lot of challenges that impede the enforcement of legislation which we must address. Chairperson, I would like to quote from one of the great sons of Africa, the late Kofi Annan, former Secretary General of the United Nations, who once said, "Any society that fails to take measures to protect the safety and well-being of half of its members cannot claim to be making real progress." I therefore take this opportunity to call upon all state apparatus, NGOs, civil society, development partners, the private sectors, and communities to galvanize our efforts in the fight against gender-based violence. Finally, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the network and all its partners for the work in complementing government's efforts in the eradication of gender-based violence. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor to declare the 16 Days of Activism campaign for 2018 officially launched. I thank you all very much.
The event was graced by a female rapper and activist, Our Bling, whose song spread out positive information about gender-based violence.
Gender-based violence has been a practice here in Gambia, and I think it's high time that it should be stopped. When a woman says no, it should be a no. Stop violating women's rights based on their appearance or based on their looks. And also stop female gender mutilation, because it has complications, and it changes people's lives. Our girl child are the future of tomorrow. So please stop female gender mutilation. For Kerr Fatou, I am Sally Joe.